Welcome to Sunday Chats with Joel, and I'm here with who
Carolina.
Carolina?
Caroline. Carol.
Are you Caroline Agava? Muhumuza, are you Caroline Agava?
Caroline Lynn Agava.
Lynn is your official name?
Yeah.
I thought Lynn was just a short part of Caroline.
No. I think my parents were feeling cool. So they were like, Caroline, ooh, Lynn.
Okay.
And put it in there.
All right, I'm here with Lynn Agava,
Yes.
and today we're going to talk about the identity and the self. So, start off by telling us who you are.
I am Carol. I'm Caroline. That question is confusing.
Okay, let me say this. When you meet people, what's the first thing that you tell them about yourself?
I don't think I really tell people anything about myself. I allow their perceptions to guide the rest of the interaction because it's also something that I don't know, honestly. I've struggled with fitting into specific roles, so I'm just like there.
You're just there. So you're not offended if someone thinks something that you don't find flattering?
No, I'm not. And
like if
also
I
no
met
one
you
has
and I
really-
said, you're Mama Rafa. Can you believe she has a child?
Yeah.
How old is?
He's 4.
You have a 4-year-old child.
Yes.
All
Can you
right.
imagine?
It's just-
A whole human being. I did that.
I think there were 2 people. There was someone else at the beginning at least involved. So if someone met you and went, oh, this is Mama Rafa, is there something about that do you go, yeah, sure? Or you feel like it's leaving out?
No, Mama Rafa is quite apt for me because really my main purpose I feel on earth right now is to look after Rafa. But maybe honestly no one has ever like called me something that makes me go like pull my mouth or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay. There are many things people should know about you. One is you really don't like small talk. Why don't you like small talk?
Why don't I like small talk? I don't know where it comes from. Because I'm okay with silence. I'm okay sitting with someone and not saying anything. I can get lost in my own thoughts. So if I meet someone and we have to talk about, I don't know, like even the weather can be fine. But is it fine? I'm just like, would rather keep quiet. It's fine. I feel like it's making an effort and then it brings in elements of like pretentiousness or masking. I don't know what to call it. Like, it's like, how are you? I've grown to dislike the question, how are you?
What do you say when people say, how are you?
I say I'm fine, but it irritates me. It's like that. It's like metal on metal.
Okay.
Because it doesn't mean anything. Or saying morning, when you know how people in the office are like, morning, morning. Like, don't say it at all. What's morning? Like, no one even says good morning. They're just like, morning. And I'm like...
So I'm trying to square the 2 things. One, you've said, right, that you don't mind being sort of characterized in one way or viewed in one way. Like, you don't really mind people seeing you a certain way.
Yeah.
But then it seems odd to me that in conversation, like just meaningless words make you go, why are we? It's like you think there's a certain amount of words that we have or time that we have and you feel like it's being wasted. Or that's the wrong perception of it. Like to me, when I meet someone and I say, hi, and they say, how are you? Like today when I went to get some coffee, the person asked me how I am. If I told them how I really was, they would also go, are you mad?
Yes.
Like, why are you telling me? But it's just,
So
it's
why
a
are
whole
we
thing of, I'm just
saying it?
acknowledging that you're here. So it's like,
So I do that by smiling.
you smile at people.
Yeah, I'm just like, because I see you, I know you're there. So yeah, I do. I actually, that's what I do. I'd rather just not say how are you when I know that you could be drowning and you won't tell me.
Okay.
But that's different. Like with my friends, when we meet, actually, come to think of it, like my friends, it's not like a how are you situation. It's like hi, and then we like just get right into like that day. Oh yeah, this is what I was doing. Da da da. Then the conversation picks up from there.
Okay.
But it's the how are you thing is like with people you don't see frequently, or maybe the best example really is the workplace where you're like, hi, how are you? At some point I'm like, hi is fine. It's like hi, or an acknowledgement, or a wave, or a smile.
You know what I do? I have earphones in all the time.
That's even,
So that people
that's
don't
why.
talk to me.
At least you
I just-
smile to acknowledge.
I don't have this conversation with you. So, you, when I met you, you were working. Were you in the bank or you were in Umeme?
Umeme.
You were in Umeme. And at the time, you were really enjoying a good party. You really even formed good times. And my impression of you at the time was just someone who, it felt like you had been very responsible for a long time. And now you are, let me enjoy myself. I don't know if that reading of you was correct.
Yes, yes.
So being very responsible, maybe tell people what you were in high school.
Really? Do we have to go
We have to
that
start from there
far
because
back?
it's yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
square it.
I was the head girl of Mount St. Mary's, Namagunga.
You guys can see it, but
True
Alan is
knowledge
also
to
going.
virtue. I think that was the motto, yes, I think.
True knowledge to virtue. So why did you become, because you stood for the post, right?
Yes.
So what made you think I'm going to be the leader of all these people? I'm going to be an institution. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't seem like an institution type person.
Not, I'm anti-establishment. No, that I was being dutiful. So what happened for that is I never missed a day of mass in school. I was very, very religious. So every morning mass, I was active in the Legion of Mary. I was the president of the Legion of Mary in A level. So at that time when we needed to elect, the school needed a new head girl. Was it the deputy headmistress or one of the teachers called me and asked me if I could run or like she was just trying to understand because I embodied Namagunga as they imagine it, Catholic school, and I was a staunch Catholic and all those things. So it's not something it wasn't like my initiative. But also when the request was made, I was like, okay, why not?
Why not? And how did you enjoy it?
No.
Why? What was
I feel like that's where my disillusionment started.
At Mount St. Mary's?
My disillusionment with life started quite early on. I remember like in O level, I'd have these moments of, why are we going back home and coming back? Like the cycle was so repetitive. And it's like, can't we just do this thing and finish? So it was the coming and going, the coming and going. And so I think that's the first time I felt a sense of, something doesn't add up about life. There's something, okay, now I have the words for it. I'd say I was feeling like it felt Sisyphean, it's like rolling that boulder and it comes back down. That's what, now I have that terminology for it. But then it just felt like some sort of unrest. And then...
that was you as a young child.
But there's the other things that go way back, but let me start with that one of Olevo because it's easier to explain. But when I say disillusionment, it's like you're in a position of power, but you can't do anything meaningful. So, should I really talk about this? If you're any Namagunga for watching, a very basic example, the pit latrines.
You mean you people had pit latrines in Mount St. Mary's?
We used to use pits, but even prestigious schools, Bundo, I'm looking
You're
at
destroying the illusion. No, there were no such things. We had flashing toilets and used to eat spaghetti every day.
I think that's the best example I can give. So sometimes, and this is a very weird example, but I guess it also comes back to like the absurdity of life. The pits didn't have water to clean them, and I would just be like, what can I do about this? I can't pull water from anywhere, and so you're the head girl, but what have you done with it? There's nothing. It felt ceremonial, like you're just there to say, oh, I am the head girl and I can do this, and maybe you can give out some punishments. But for me, I just felt like we can't even keep the freaking pits clean. And then it also made me disillusioned with power because we had teachers, we had adults in the school.
But none of them thought this is something that could be rectified.
Put like a reliable source of water. Just for a disclaimer, things have changed now.
Have they?
I've had discussion in my OGs and they were like, you should have done something about it. But I'm told like they now have like the pits now have solar and they have like a water recycling. Anyway, everything has changed. Things are much better now. But for me back then, at that time, that's when I was a head girl and I realized I couldn't actually do things that I thought were meaningful. it sort of just dismantles my whole idea of, so what is the point of now calling yourself something when you can't do anything with it?
So, I don't know, I was going to explore that as an example of bad faith, because like, to me now, I'm in a position of authority, but there's a sort of gap between, there are things I want to do as Joel, then there are things that my role is meant to do, and they don't always align. And like, to the point, you asking me about watching football. Whenever I watch like World Cup or Olympics, it's quite silly that we have national anthems. Like, I look at it like, why is there a song for this country? And then you wave a flag, there's like, these are our colors. And then, but then if you think about it, like, what does it all mean? So it took me back to even school. I thought that was like a preparation of pageantry and giving something like a sense of awe. You took me to, is it Saint
Augustine?
Saint Augustine. And I really like Catholic services and like Catholic cathedrals for two reasons. One, it's so dramatic. We are now kneeling to pray, and now the music. Yeah, so there's something about it, shakes me out of everyday life and puts me into a certain mode. But then the other thing I also like is the silence. Like when I sit in there and it's completely quiet. So what I'm curious about is every time I see a priest, I wonder what it's like for the priest, because to us as the laity, it's like I don't know, maybe it's not a performance, but it's like a thing, a ceremony. But if you were to be the priest, I would be very sad, because I'm like, every day we are doing the same thing, and you have to keep it the same way. So I would think for you being in a position of authority, because you're meant to keep things sort of going. You're not meant to shake up stuff. So this is why when you told me that you were the head girl, I was like, huh?
I think at that time I did know it must have been one of those naive things where you think that you get somewhere and do something with your authority or whatever it is. But for me, the whole business just made me go like, it's a waste of time, you know? Striving for that kind of authority. Because I think when I became head girl, I thought you could make a difference. And in some ways, I guess you can. Looking back now, I feel like young people these days are more innovative, because the people abroad that changed the school, for example, are the former head girls. They came together, they were like, this situation was bad in school. But for me, I left it, and I am not ever looking back. Like, bye. And then I just carried on, like, it's like I closed that chapter once and was like,
I'm done, I've served my time.
Yeah.
All right, so now as an adult, as a proper adult, do you feel like you know yourself?
I feel like I'm still getting to know myself. There is just so much I don't understand about like my actions and the things that I've done, or the way I feel. Like sometimes I'll feel something and I'm like, why? And I don't get it. But the way in which I know myself is, I guess it's like boundaries. I know how far I can push myself. I know what I can handle, those kinds of things. But that intimate, deep knowledge of oneself, I feel is like, I don't even know if I will ever, or if anyone really does.
Okay. I mean, so do you know what you want?
No.
I've always
and
found that
is
question.
So broad.
No, yeah, but like, so this is my working theory. I only know what I want when it's being denied to me. Like, say if I am going somewhere, they say you can't go here. Suddenly, I feel like I want to now go there. But when you leave me with nothing, to then select, I start panicking. I don't know what it is that I want. Now, the problem with that is when I went into therapy. I'm saying everyone, no? Therapy is good for you. Now, I went to therapy. The thing I think we got to was the idea of authenticity can be a sort of burden, because you're trying so hard to make yourself authentic, and then if you go behind that authenticity, you're like, but what does that mean? If you don't know yourself, how can you be your authentic self? So the way she explained it to me was like, just look at what you do and then find a narrative that makes sense of all of that. The problem is I do random things, so there's no story it's not coherent, that's coming together. So that's what I was trying to come to you about, because you seem to embody contradictions.
Yes, I'm not, definitely my persona, whatever you want to call it, is not coherent even to me. But I was reading a book called Predictably Irrational, and it's by a behavioral economist, but he has all sorts of social experiments he does that tie back into economics and how we make decisions. And my favorite chapter there talked about how our brains don't know how to make decisions in isolation. Like we need to compare. So he gives a very funny example about choosing a spouse or who you find attractive. Like if I put you alone here, okay, maybe not use us as an example, but for example, you could be looking at someone the most common example is like a group of girls. You know how they say that there's the hot chick, then there's the other friends.
It's scientifically proven.
So the question becomes, if the hot chick was alone, seated alone, would people still be like, she's the hot chick, or is she hot in comparison?
Yes.
So he did a social experiment. Like I think he drew a typical face and went around. He studied at Stanford and I forget the other university, but his experience was on campus. And he'd hand over a flyer and ask about the attractiveness. And people would, with one face, it's okay, with two faces. So what he did, add a third option. And then consistently, the most attractive face would now be, it was more evident for that. It was easier for people to choose, this is the most attractive. And how that plays out in economics is when you see 3 price points, there's the freemium, then there's a middle one, then there's a very expensive one. Really, they are guiding your decision to usually the middle one, because you'll be like, if I can get maybe free, if it's an online newspaper and they're offering you free articles and then something, and then the expensive one just has some exclusive rights, and then there's the freemium, which is limited or something like that. So he says that's how it plays out in economics. So even choosing dresses, you have to look at many options and be like, okay, this one. But just one point in your decision-making spectrum is very hard to compare.
You can't decide something just in a vacuum. You need some sort of comparison to know, okay, this is better than this, or this I prefer to that.
Yes.
So my question there has always been, as someone who's a married woman, I hear people sort of saying that they had a list of things that they wanted in their partner. Now for me, whenever I hear that, it's like if I went shopping for something and I wanted to get a chair, I wanted to be black, I wanted to have good support, all of those things. It means that I might pick you and say, okay, this is the chair I'm going to go with. Then the next day I find a chair which has better things. Wouldn't I then, by that reason, go, thanks, I've upgraded? So, as a person who's married, when you guys were going through marital counseling, do they just tell you to settle, or you have to keep wanting your person to become the best version of themselves? I've always found it's a bit of if you can state the reasons you love someone, to me, when you start stating those reasons, you're starting to fall out of love and starting to fall into consumption. I'm getting a product.
Yeah, and I think this is something we've not really acknowledged for ourselves as human beings and our relations. Our relationships are not as, transcendent, or
it's not like the R&B music we'll be listening to.
Yeah,
that's why we
really
like it.
Isn't. We are consuming, for lack of a better word, products of each other. Because the minute one of those specs goes off, the relationship starts to falter. And then, I really don't, that's the best way to put it, because you're like, okay, you fell in love with this person as they are, but relationships are transactional, really. At the end of the day, you're getting something. I keep saying the only love that's unconditional is God's, and we don't know where God is when we are suffering. But
He's carrying you.
You get that is unconditional love, because not asking for anything from you, at least according to the Christian story.
Yeah.
But human relations just have to be transactional, and the question becomes: is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's okay.
You think it's okay?
What else should it be?
So then, why do we want? So this is why I'm curious. You asked me a question the other day about where do these desires come from? It seems like the desire is there, then whatever you call yourself tries to manage it. It's like, I never sit there and go, I want to be hungry. Hunger shows up, then I'm like, now I need to do something.
Yes.
So in the same way, it seems to be that we have this need to get something from someone, which when we try and give it to them, we almost try and rationalize it. Like someone will make a list of these are the qualities I want in a person, and that's you. But if they told you that they had a list that you own, and then you might want to, am I 7 out of 10? Am I 9 out of 10? So there's this weird, for me, the phrase I love you is full of pressure, because it's not just someone saying it, it's someone saying, I want you to love me. It's like a demand. If I say I love you, that's why I say I love you, and someone says thank you, it's like you've been slapped in the...
Yeah, it's because it's like we have our egos to appease. Like we think so highly of ourselves, and maybe it's a story we're told, you're worth something, whatever, affirmations and what. So to hear that someone is giving us marks like the products that we are, then you're like, you feel like you don't have intrinsic value. But the truth is, I think you can only have intrinsic value to yourself. Like, I know who I am, for lack of a better word. Okay. But someone else cannot have that for you. They can't know they're not you. They're not in your brain. They don't live with you. You live with yourself. So they can only appreciate you from what you can give.
Yeah.
What value you bring. And I know it sounds, people wouldn't want to hear that, but to me, when I look at marriage, when I look at relationships, except for the parent-child relationship, which even then, some parents are living vicariously through their kids. But when I look at my son, I don't want anything from him like he could do sometimes, when I see serial killers, their parents probably still love them to death.
No, just had a bad few weeks.
Slaughtering
people.
He was angry or something like that.
He didn't have his conflicts.
Okay, detour, but I watched a show called The Patient, guys. When I'm a big series person, maybe I should introduce myself.
Go to Carol's, what is it, Carol Links on Twitter?
Yeah,
you'll get the best recommendations.
And in that show, some serial killer kidnaps a psychologist and keeps him in his basement and doesn't make him like, you have to make me better. I want to stop killing you, but I can't. And
that's
guess
an interesting premise.
Who he lives with? He lives with his mom. So this psychologist downstairs, he has sounds and he's like, who's there? Is someone there? And the mom comes downstairs and he's like, call the police. He's like, I can't do that to my child. And he's like, see this woman. She's going to...
Your Netflix suggestions must be very interesting.
But I love those dark shows. But anyway, back to what we were saying. The parent-child relationship, I think for me, is one that is free of those expectations. If you don't have baggage, like if you don't have that, because parents, we have our baggage, and children are really blank slates, initially. So there's nothing. Your child is just there. You love them, but it is not fair to expect a full-grown adult to not expect something from you. You get, because and marriage, even the way marriage is set up, the vows are expectations.
You're making obligations to each other. Like, you're going to do this, you're going to be here, you're going to love me, you're going to do all these things.
Exactly. And it's a transaction, because if I'm not doing that, I'm giving up something. It's a transaction. We're exchanging something.
Okay.
And I guess, like I said, is it good or bad? I think that depends on your school, your philosophy on life, if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay, so let me just pick you up on that thing with like Rafa. So in my mind, whenever people talk about their children, typically they're talking about their young children. But then as they start to grow, there seems to be this, they become an adult. They become, now there's this transaction of, I owe you, I did this for you. So do you think at some point your relationship with Rafa is going to enter into this sphere where you're like with everyone else? Do you think like your child will eventually become just another adult? Really? And
I'm excited for that, honestly. I can't wait to know what's been in his head all along. That I don't know, that he doesn't
Bath
know.
time was never fun. I don't understand.
Like from when I gave birth, I would look at him and I was like, you're in there somewhere. There is a you that's going to come out, that's maybe going to have opinions, that's going to fight with me, that's going to become a misogynist. Hopefully not.
Yeah, like I'm tired of these women.
I'm just like, for me, the way I look at it is I am so curious and I can't wait to see who he is. Even now I can see who he is, but I'm also very much aware that could change. But like, because I am first, this question that you asked me, like, who are you or what do you want? And I'm telling you, I'm not even sure and I don't know, So for me, the exciting part about being a mother is is watching that happen in real time. Because right now, he's 4, he doesn't know anything. He's like, are we in November, are we in December? He's in some sort of limbo, but it's a happy, comfortable limbo. And one day he's going to grow aware of time, he's going to grow aware of life's issues. I'm just hoping that we'll be able to have these conversations. Like, for me, it does not bother me that he's going to be his own adult. It doesn't really bother me. Like, from when I gave birth, I just knew he's not mine. It's not mine to hold on to. He's going to be his own
You're
person.
like a steward. You're like
Exactly,
taking care of him now.
And for me, that doesn't make me feel depressive. Like, I'm just like, I can't wait. Because I have a live, what do you call it? I'm watching what I would have wanted to have for myself, that awareness, that outer body awareness of this is what's happening to you in this time. This is why you're sad. This is why you're happy. This is why you want this person. This is why you don't want this person. This is why you want these things. We don't have the benefit of that. In the moment, we are just living with our emotions and our feelings. So you don't have that voice to tell you, this is what's happening. This is why.
You don't
these
have
are the
that
dynamics.
narrator that would be there in a show to go, this is what's happening, this is what you want.
Connect the dots for you and say, you remember that incident? That's why this, But when you're a parent, at least for me, the kind of parent I am, is I'm watching him and I'm seeing all that happen. I'm like, this is why you're upset, this is that, and I hope he will have enough sense to ask me, Mommy, tell me, why am I like this? You should ask me, because I will know. I will have all the answers.
How has this affected like your relationship with your mom? Is there a difference now that you're a mom that you can? Does it retroactively affect like the way you perceived your mom or your relationship, or it's pretty much the same?
It's the same. My relationship, I think for me, I've always had an awareness that my parent, my mom, she's a human being and she's doing the best that she can with what she has, as they say. So I've always approached it from, even when like I get irritated and annoyed, I have to remind myself consistently that, you know what, that is what she knows. In her mind, this is what's best. So my relationship with her has not really like changed or become different. But of course, I draw lessons from it in terms of what I don't. The parents of that generation had their guidance is very firm-handed, like, this is what you should be doing, you shouldn't be doing that, which is good. And I think you're scared of giving your child too much freedom. It's just the way, I was raised very religiously, and of course now I'm not that religious anymore, and I know it bothers her. But I understand why they put those firm boundaries, like, this is the path you should follow. Now, for me in my parenting, I don't think I'm going to do that. But I question myself still. I'm like, are you doing the right thing to just be there? You're not taking him for Holy Communion. You're not taking him for Sunday school. Like, I'm questioning myself, because his upbringing is not going to be as tough. Not tough, as strict, especially ideologically. Yeah. But then at the same time, I'm like, but what if it's okay? What if I don't do that? So for me, I observed my relationship with my mom, and I see what I can draw from it, and what worked and what I can apply here. But with my mom, really, it's the same relationship. Like, I understand where she's coming from. Maybe we talk a bit more these days, but I can't say it's because I'm a mom. I think really it's just growing up. Yeah. It's
weird, anyway, for me at least, my parents seeing me as an adult now, because they will tell me things. I'm like, why are you telling me all this information? But at the same time, there were things I needed to forgive them for, because I thought like, why are you forcing this on me? Why are you asking me to be this way? But now I can interpret it as they were doing the best that they knew. Like, the intention covers over the effect in some sense. You talked about religion. This is the last bit. I'm not going to over-invade. So, but you grew up very religious. Like, do you feel like you were honestly believing it, and then at some point you had questions? Like, what happened to make you go from the most Catholic Ugandan ever to?
I think really it comes down to like what I said earlier. What can you do with it? So, and you know the way Catholicism is set up, it's, there's all that piousness and there's all that prayer and there is, but what do you do with it in real life? I think that's where my disillusionment comes from, with all systems and establishments that have some sort of power or have grand promises.
Okay.
The world is not changing because there's a pope somewhere, and that church is filled with all kinds of stories of abuse.
Yeah.
No one is doing anything. No one is being arrested. What's the impact we are having exactly? I mean, maybe missionaries actually probably had a point because they were like, oh, let's go and help these people and teach them and da da da. But what exactly is happening in the world because of these institutions? I think that's what I ask myself. And granted, there is good there. I know there is charitable works and whatnot. But for me, when I look, I guess it's just looking at life and seeing there's this immovable thing that no one seems to even know how to tackle. We can't get rid of pain. We can't get rid of suffering.
Yeah.
You can make a small dent, but that's about it. And then I compare that to the piousness and what religion requires of you, the prayerfulness and and then this immovable object of shit in the world. And I'm like, what's
You
happening?
can't reconcile the two.
I can't. I'm just like, nothing is moving. And then it comes back to the nihilism, I guess. I mean, there's the whole concept of optimistic nihilism, but I think for me now that's where I just withdrew from it all. I was like, it's not doing anything.
Okay. And it was too much pressure for you to try and hold on to that thing and say, well, I really.
Because even in my own life, I'm upholding all these things, but then you fall short, then you go for confession, then you da. And then it's like, until when, please? Like, can I just rest?
Till the Lord returns.
Can I just rest?
So I had an interesting thought and discussion with someone about Christianity, and this is the way I understood it. They were saying that the Old Testament and the New Testament are very different because in the Old Testament, God is above and transcendent, and we are consistently falling short. Then I think the Christian view is that, God became man and then reconciled ourselves to him. But then he was like, the problem was that they put Jesus and God again back onto the throne in heaven. It's like, if you see what Jesus was saying, he was basically saying that you are now, like, what died on the cross was not man, it was God. Like, if Jesus was God and then he died, then the veil that separated us from God was torn asunder. So now the whole thing of I have to stand and ask God what I'm supposed to do, it's like, no, you are the body of Christ. So that means your actions in the world, that's you being God. To me, that sort of gave me like, okay, that would mean the way, like your point, the way church is now. Church is almost like a place where you go to scream into the heavens. But realistically, what it should be is like what you mentioned about the missionaries. Like, you should be acting. Like the verse that says, don't pray for someone when they need bread. Like, give them bread. Don't start, because you're the one who's supposed to execute on the will of God. Now, when I think about that, you talked about Sisyphus rolling up that boulder. And the idea is that Sisyphus' only path to freedom is to embrace the boulder. Yeah. So you've embraced the boulder. Is that what you're saying? Or you're still, it sounds like you're trying to embrace it, but you're also like, but it's boulder.
I'm angry with it. I'm just fed. It's very annoying to me that is a fate I have. Like, why can't I embrace some flowers in a garden? Why can't I be strolling by the ocean and that is my struggle in life? Like, why do I have this boulder that I have to, I get the whole embrace that, because there's nothing you can do about it, right? Yeah. I get that. That is all you have. So make the most of it. Yeah. But then it makes me like, why and who decided that this is all that I have? So that sort of just makes me
even more.
It's frustrating. So I oscillate between that. I'm like, be calm, be grounded, be present. So, and then at that time, I'm like,
maybe those are the emotions, like you go through them. It's okay, they're all valid, and then you rest. Yeah. Perhaps denying it is the real problem. So when Rafa gets to the point where he's asking about, like, why are we here? I remember my younger sister, when she first learned of death, she thought death was something on TV. Like, she'd watch and be like, okay, that character is now gone. Then in real life, when my aunt died, she was like, you mean she's not coming back? Like, where is she going?
It became real.
When is it? So the explanation that they gave her was that, at some point God calls you home and then your spirit goes there. Then her question after that was like, is it going to happen to me? And when will it happen? And we lied to her. when you're very old, like we couldn't be like, we don't know. At any point now, you could just die.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like you'll have to give him a mediated version, or you will tell him the brute truth? You will say, well, anything can happen anytime, and we don't know what happens.
I feel like I will give him the brute truth, but in a very motherly way.
Well, like rubbing his head and saying, I'm so sorry.
Like, no one knows what is happening. Like, we are just here. We don't know anything can happen anytime. I think I'll be very honest. Like, and one of the reasons I used to blog was I want my child to see me. I want to be seen, and I don't want to be like put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
I want him to know that like I'm all these things. I'm confused, I'm sure, I am lost. I find myself sometimes, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, and I have good moments, and there people think I'm always happy. Joel,
you look like you're always happy. I say, me, I know her.
It's a smiling, I told you, because instead of saying how are you, I smile. So the smiling gives all these vibes of, oh, what a happy person.
Inside.
Yeah,
there's a rage.
There's a fire burning. But I want my son to see me. I feel like the world, the way we live our lives, demands that we must. There's this quote I read Ngugi wa Thiong'o in his book about life being, well, I'll paraphrase, it demands that we wear masks the better to dance the masquerade of life. And that's true. I mean, look at you, Mr. CEO.
Yeah, a real mask.
Look at Carol, the mother, Carol, the wife, Carol, the and it's never just, can't I just be, remember when I say, can't I just be like that flower, like that duck?
You can't be a duck.
You can't just be.
Yeah.
Because at any one point, something is someone is asking something from you, either or the world, directly or indirectly. So, and you cannot just be there. We have all these roles we are playing, right? Or fulfilling. So for my son, really my greatest desire for our relationship is for him to see me. Hopefully he won't judge me. There can be those kids who will be like, hey, mommy, really? Can't you be like other parents?
It's a phase everyone has to go through.
Right? But I just hope that whatever age he reaches, like I was a full human being, the whole spectrum of emotions. I didn't always have it figured out. But what I considered real is the love and the relationship I have for him, like if that makes any sense, that is what I wanted to hold on to. Like, this chick didn't know shit, but she really, really loved me.
She did her best. Have you heard that, Rafa? If you're watching this in 20, what? How old?
Right?
20 and 30 or something like that.
So he has my blogs, then he has this coverage. It's going to be like, come on.
Mommy had a nice dress. This is the very last question. It's about friendship. I've noticed as we've grown older, I'm the only one growing older, you're staying the same age. As we've grown older, there are like two lanes of friends I have. There are those who have resigned and said, we are all busy. We all have something that's going on. And there isn't this pressure to be like, well, you didn't check on me, you didn't like, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. Those are easier. Like, we just meet and start talking, and we sort of have that accommodation of each other. Then there are those who consistently, our chats are, you've thrown me out, or remember when we used to do this, let's try. Like, I feel like we're trying to grasp
something,
things that left.
gone, yeah.
And to me, I've now reached this point of, I think the longer we try and grasp past, it's just robbing the present of what it is. And when you try and go back, it's never as good as you like. It doesn't add up. But that's my take. I don't know what your experience of adult friendship is like.
First of all, this need to connect is the bane of existence. Like the fact that you cannot just be there. That's the quote of the day. Like, what, you can't just be there alone and okay in your cocoon. And I think I've asked you this, where does it come from? Like, why do I need to look for someone to have a good conversation with? Why can't I just
Can I give you what I think the answer is? So, I just don't think that it's possible for a human being to... There's that thing Aristotle said about the only kind of creature that can exist totally independent is a god or a beast. Like a warthog can just be there. It doesn't need, there's no affirmation. It has no social structure. And a god is above all these things. But to be human, like, when I ask what you are, everything that you mentioned has a social relation. And I think the reason shame is felt, I mean, if we could be totally independent, we would never feel shame. Shame is me going, that person is judging me.
Yeah.
And their judgment might be correct. So there is no way you can exist without having someone who sees you.
Yeah, it's that need to be seen.
Yeah. So this is why identity comes, like I need to be recognized. Like there's a part of us that is always outside of us.
And you feel lonely. And that's why even in relationships, you can be lonely if you don't feel understood or seen.
One of the darkest things I heard about relationships is that no matter how close you get to someone, they can never experience what you like subjectively.
Yeah.
They can never know quite what you're going through. Words will always fall short. Emotions will always fall short. So you just have to reconcile yourself to the fact that there's always going to be some loneliness that you carry with yourself in the world.
That sounds very Alain de Botton-ish, because he has this book, The School of Life. Please look for that book. Anyway, and he talks about how no one was meant to experience the fullness of you. You are too much as a, like if you carry all your things and then you're like, please have them and share them with me. Then also the other person brings all their things, hopes, dreams, fears, pain, It's too much for anyone to handle. Okay, maybe except a parent. Like I said, I think a parent, you should. You're the one who brought your child into the world, but your fellow adult partner that you met in adulthood, that's difficult. And then back to your question of friendships. I think for me, friendships fill that void, that need to connect. So I understand someone who is trying to bring back, what they're looking for really is the way we connected that time, the way we felt, or you made me feel in that moment.
Yeah.
And it takes some sort of self-awareness for them to find other ways to capture that feeling. Because if you keep looking for it in other people, I mean, yes, we are bound to look for it in other people. We can't help it. But then I think that's why we need other. For me, I find it in books. I find it in music. I find it in concerts. Chidula.
She's real getting ready for Shiba.
Whenever I'm alone at a concert, in that moment, in that crowd with everyone, all that excitement.
True. I've seen you dancing when no one else is dancing.
For me, then, that is where I will feel that from. And that allows me, having that ability to find it within myself or within like things around me that are not necessarily people, has freed me now from the burden of like trying to force my friendships to be things they no longer are. And then that leaves room for the friendship to become what works for the individuals at that point in time. But I really, so that the whole business, like I was saying when we were chatting earlier, we have to understand that things are changing, and that thing that you're looking for, just find it somewhere else, because you cannot extinguish it. It's that need to connect.
Yeah.
So for me, I found that I find it. So I've gotten my books and my music. That's where it is. And then whoever joins me, finds me on that journey, great. Like it will not be by force. Yeah.
So dear friends, you've heard, find it somewhere else. Find your joy.
Loving way.
They've told you don't stress us. We are adults with our own things.
But be intentional about your friendships. But if your friends are unavailable, it's okay also.
Any parting message for anyone experiencing ennui for any reason, either they're in a bad relationship or they are in church and they don't feel reconciled? The several things that you've been feeling.
The several things I've been feeling. Oh my goodness. I don't have anything wise to say, except that for me, my greatest comfort has always come from knowing I'm not the first. Like these feelings, these questions, this ennui, all these things, someone else has experienced them. And if you can't find such people in your life, like I was lucky to find Joel. If you can't find the Joels to give you some language to define and because I feel like if you can name your demons, you can fight them. So if you can name that thing that is causing that itch, and then you address it, maybe you read. But for me, really reading books of all kinds has always given me that feeling of comfort that I need. So I don't feel crazy. Yes, sometimes I feel crazy, but it's like, you're not doing so badly on the crazy spectrum. And that comfort sort of gives you some energy to carry on for the next day and the next day. I feel like I used to want for there to be a final solution.
Yeah.
Like, done with all these feelings, done with all these questions, and I'm done, and I'm a normal person, and I'm assimilating into society normally, but I'm starting to realize at my big age of 35 that things don't end over. Why you make yourself very, very busy so that you don't think about it.
You're too tired to think about it.
Work, what, do what. But then, anyway.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. And please, people, don't Google the final solution. It means something else completely. Bye.
There is such a thing as a
Do you know the final solution?
What is that?
That's what Hitler was trying to do.
Oh.
Yeah.